Hello, before the theme song, I just quickly want to plug the segment of the podcast after the interview, which I suspect most people don't listen to, which is cool. I'm not mad. Believe me, I don't listen to it myself on other podcasts, but I wanted to plug it this week because I got a little more to say than usual, but now I'm going to shut up because I really want you to hear this episode. Welcome to the Jeff Rubin Show. I am Jeff Rubin, and I am so excited because today I am talking to the creator of one of my favorite shows. The show is Rick and Morty, and the creator is Justin Roiland. Welcome to the show, Justin.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Now, for those that have not seen Rick and Morty, let me briefly try to describe it. It's an Adult Swim cartoon, and there's a brilliant inventor named Rick, and he has a grandson named Morty, and Rick kind of drags Morty on all these interdimensional adventures with just minimal regard for his safety. Is that a fair way to describe it?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So anyone who has seen Rick and Morty knows that, but what they might not know is the show's origins as a Channel 101 show.
Yeah.
First of all, what is Channel 101?
Channel 101 is a monthly... I don't want to say a film competition, but it's a monthly short. I'll just say short film competition that's sort of built around the TV industry. It's kind of a microcosm of the TV industry, and what it encourages people to do is to create a pilot of any kind of show that they would want to make that is no longer than 5 minutes, and then. The pilots basically are screened in front of a live audience who act as the network, and they basically vote back the their 5 favorite shows. You're able to vote for 5 at the live screening, and then the highest voted shows basically come back for another episode. And it was sort of my training ground, I guess. I mean, I kind of consider it like I didn't go to college. I did Channel 101, and it was sort of it was about the same, in terms of what I learned and took away from it.
A little bit cheaper, I imagine.
A lot cheaper, yeah. It was just your own blood, sweat, and tears,
So were you doing that when, in that 18 to 22 range when some people would be in college?
Yeah, I mean, I came to LA when I was 22. I just turned 22. And so I got involved in Channel 101, I want to say... in October, I was 23, and it was 2003, so it was around October. Is when I think me and my buddies discovered it. My friend showed it to me because we had some mutual friends from Modesto that were involved in it, and I watched the thing they made, which was incredible, a thing called Sock Baby, and made by Doug TenNapel and Justin Spurlock and John Soares, and I was so blown away by it, and then I just kind of dived into the website and learned about it, and I mean we were submitting the very next screening. Me and my buddy Savan and my friend Abed basically jumped right in, both feet, and I basically had something submitted every month up until I think my first month I skipped was in 2009, towards the end of 2009.
And what did you learn? That you basically, did you have any technical experience at all, or did you just kind of figure out what you want to do and make it up as you went along?
I had been making with my friends, with the same guys, short films and sketches and stuff, but we had never done animation. I mean, we'd played around, but we'd never really done it, and so we were like, let's make a cartoon, and I drew everything and wrote it. And directed the voice actors, which in the beginning was just me and my friend Abed. And then my buddy Savan would take all the art, backgrounds, and audio, radio play, and basically just keyframe everything in After Effects. And it was insane. I mean, we didn't know about. I mean, we knew about Flash, but we had kind of carved our own process just based on what the tools we had and what we knew. And then we were just making, we were just slaving over these cartoons all weekend, and every day we were free. It was kind of a weekend and nights thing because I was off and on working in reality TV, and during the day, that was my day job.
Was everything you submitted animated? Because not everything at Channel 101 is.
No, I mean, it was the majority of the stuff that we did was because I felt like I've always wanted to do cartoons, and I've been a big fan forever of animated stuff, and I would do comics and whatnot, and so when we were like, oh, let's make cartoons, it just felt natural, and I'm a bit of a recluse, so being able to just do everything in your apartment, you're creating the backgrounds, you're creating the characters. You don't really have to ever leave your comfort zone. Whereas live action, you're having to schedule people and coordinate and find locations and costumes and all this stuff. And it was just so much easier to just draw everything. It kind of set us free in terms of, doing whatever we wanted creatively. But I did make a couple of live action things. I can't remember. Or no, I made a handful of things that were live action.
Is there something that you saw at Channel 101 in your time there that stands out to you as like the craziest thing you saw at Channel 101?
There was so much stuff, like really great stuff over the years. Like the Boo was amazing. The Lonely Island guys, and I think that they at one point might have been the longest running show. Yeah, I think I think their record got broken, but early on they were the longest running Channel 101 show. They kept getting voted back every month, and it was sort of like a OC kind of parody, like a bunch of young adults in love, and it was just insane.
Was it? And that's the Lonely Island guys who, if you didn't know them then, you probably know them now. Was it like clear? Was it clear? Like, was the trajectory clear for you? Did you see like them going on to do what we now know them for?
I mean, they were always, everything they made was amazing.
Yeah, that stuff's online and like people can Google it if they're interested, and it's really funny.
Yeah, I mean, they were fantastic. I mean, right from the get go. I mean, when I first joined in on Channel 101, it was, those guys were there. Chris Romano and Eric Falconer were there, who are writers. They did a show called Blue Mountain State, and Tim and Eric would contribute regularly. And this was way before Tom Goes to the Mayor, or they're the more popular Awesome Show, which I fucking love. And it was, I don't know, it was a really interesting time. It was like a lot of really talented people just having fun and making stuff for the hell of it. Obviously Dan Harmon was there, and Rob, they created the thing, so they were there making stuff regularly. But there was constantly just amazing stuff, and the bar was always set really high. And once in a blue moon, there'd be new blood, like fresh blood that would come in and blow everybody away. Like this guy Ryan Nagata, I remember he kind of came out of nowhere. It was just that nobody knew him, and he submitted something that was absolutely incredible. It was called Your Magic Touched Me, and I think that was the name of it. And it was just insane. We were like, who is this guy? And he kind of became a regular, after he showed up, and just everyone, we were always so desperate for fresh blood to just blow us away, like brand new people we didn't know submitting stuff, But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like the people that were there and the stuff that was being made, and the Lonely Island guys were definitely, you could see that they were insanely talented, but nobody knew that they were going to go on to such an insanely successful career like they did. It was sort of, looking back, it's like, it's no surprise, but it was definitely not anything that we would have imagined.
It's just it sounds like it just wasn't what you were thinking about,
Yeah, no, it wasn't. I mean, we were just having fun making stuff, and learn. And I was like, I was, the interesting thing about Channel 101 is it's very hands-on in that you have a direct connection with the audience. There's a huge audience of 300 some odd people watching your thing, and you're sitting amongst them, and you're able to like, take note of things that are working, things that aren't working. They can really pick up on when you were having fun making something versus hitting your head against the wall and just finishing something that you didn't really think was great. Definitely it was a huge learning experience. I don't know how many colleges do that. I know they'll do like a screening, you'll do like your freshman film and your sophomore film and your, junior and senior film, and then they'll screen those. But to do something every single month and get feedback that month at the end of the month and kind of go back and learn from it was an insane, it was just like a rapid growth period, where you're just learning and getting better. And definitely all the people that were involved, they made you better as well. 'Cause you were like, oh my God, these guys are fucking amazing. And you wanted to be better,
How do you get from Channel 101 to Adult Swim? Because it sounds like in some ways like the perfect environment,
No, exactly. Yeah. You're cutting your teeth on development, and then actually producing those things. And the audience is the executive telling you no or telling you yes. And which feels a lot better than an executive in a vacuum telling you no. And you're kind of like, fuck, I think this could have worked. And
this is also all before like YouTube, before like every sketch group had a YouTube channel,
Exactly.
Like getting that kind of feedback, I think maybe a little bit easier today, like obviously you still have to get noticed or whatever, but like at the time it must have been so novel.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, and it was before YouTube. And I remember me and my buddies were making stuff and we didn't really have anybody to show it to. So we had this bug, where we needed to make things and we would complete them. And then it would just sit on a hard drive. And then
what year was that again?
2000, like the end of 2003 is when we first got caught up with it. Yeah.
There was
and then
very little video on the internet then. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, there wasn't a lot. And YouTube didn't actually break until I think 2006.
Yeah, I think it started in 2006 and maybe, no one really knew about it until maybe end of 2006, 2007, with the Lonely Island, actually, now you mention it.
Yorma's brother, or no, it was Akiva's brother, I think. Or was it Yorm? No, yeah, I think it was Akiva's brother worked for YouTube. I'll never forget, I was at a party with him and Yorma and Akiva and Andy and all those guys, and he was talking about how he used to work at what was that fucking website that would just have all kinds of gore?
Rotten Style Project?
Yeah. Rotten.com.
Is it bad I had two off the top of my head?
He worked at Rotten.com and somehow made the jump to YouTube, like at the very beginning when it first started.
Pretty good jump.
Yeah. I just remember talking to him and I was like, oh my God, we're learning about YouTube. And I kind of wrote it off. I mean, I didn't, not completely, but I was like, what is this thing that he's working at? Like whatever. And then it just blew up. And I'm pretty sure that was the same party where it was weird, man. Like we're all young, and I think that was right after Andy and the guys got picked for SNL, and it was Andy and Bill Hader were there, and they were kind of just like, we were swimming in the pool or the hot tub, and I remember them just being kind of like in awe, or just sort of like it hadn't really sunk in, It was like this weird thing, like we're going to SNL. It was kind of just, I don't know. It was interesting. It was a weird sort of right before they ended up there. I think they were flying out that week or something to New York.
All right, so let's get back on track here. How did this thing go from being a Channel 101 local thing to something that we're all watching on Adult Swim?
Well, the first step is getting an agent, I think, and that happened for me in 2005. And it was the same. It's a guy named Jay Gassner at UTA, same guy who reps all these guys, the Lonely Island guys and Dan and everybody. And that happened through House of Cosby's. But then,
and what was House of Cosby's?
House of Cosby's was an animated, Channel 101 show, so like a mini TV show that featured a guy who loved Bill Cosby so much that he built a cloning machine so he basically found a Cosby hair after one of Cosby's stand-up shows and on the stage, and then created a cloning machine because he just wanted to be closer to his idol. And the cloning machine, it's like Multiplicity meets Smarts. Like he just keeps cloning them and they get worse and worse. And then I folded in the superhero thing at the end where every 10th one is a superhero. And it was insane. Like that was a big explosion.
I remember seeing that in college. Like I was in college. I remember in some sort of proto-internet pre-YouTube way seeing that maybe on like MySpleen or something, but I do remember it.
Yeah, no, I mean, E-Bombs World, ripped it and put it on their site, and it just kind of spread the way videos did back then, which is just people re-upping it on different sites and stuff and watermarking it,
Right.
But I was really blown away at how big that was. But then I got signed to UTA as a result, and it was kind of a slow build because there was a bunch of stuff that they were fans of that I had made, but that was kind of the final thing that was like, okay, let's sign this guy. And it was weird. It was like, from that point, it was like, okay, now I can pitch stuff. And I had went out and pitched a ton of things. I had teamed up with Harmon, a couple of times. Dan and I had developed things, and we'd go out and pitch stuff, and we never sold anything. And then I was sort of in this, like a lot of people in LA, you get in this kind of development nightmare thing where it's like you're making a living being told no. Like you're basically, you sell something, and then you work your ass off on it. You get a bunch of notes that kind of make you lose track of what it is you like about it while trying to appease all the network executives. And then when you finally, there's all these fiery hoops you have to jump through where whatever you're making is being reevaluated, from the pitch to the script to the, short that you animate. And then eventually they say, no, pass. And then it's on to the next thing. And I had been doing that. And then Dan, I want to say in like 2009 maybe? Or maybe it was it was later than that. 2010, 2011. He called me and said that Adult Swim was interested in making a show with him, and he wanted, like, an animated show, and he wanted to work with me on it. He was like, look, do you have any ideas? And I had made that, the original Rick and Morty, which was basically a spoof of Back to the Future, called Doc and Marty, but spelled all wrong, And it was just these two characters of just me doing this horrible impression of Doc Brown and Marty McFly, and just these shitty drawings, and it was just really juvenile, and just me kind of blowing off steam, coming off a job that I really hated for Spike TV. And I was like, I need to make something, and I just want to blow off some steam and just be fucking filthy and horrible. And but I ultimately really fell in love with the voices of the two characters and the kind of general vibe of the two and the way that they interact with each other. And Dan was a big fan of those voices as well, and he was on board immediately when I mentioned those two characters. Let's do something with those two characters. And then we just started developing it and kind of figuring it out. What are we going to do? We knew right away they wanted a half hour, so it was like, okay, this needs to have a little bit more of a grounded foundation, in terms of the making it a family and all these different things that we did to sort of set us up for the best case scenario, writing a half hour version of this thing. But that was sort of the path it took. It was really, I had always wanted to get in at Adult Swim. I mean, that was my ultimate goal from the very beginning, and I saw Tim and Eric get in there, and I didn't really bug them. I mean, I might have asked them a couple times, but I'm really cautious about, reaching out and saying, hey, hook me up with a meeting or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I never really like to bug people. So I don't think I really like tapped into that like I could have. Or, I probably shouldn't have, because I don't know, it's weird calling up those guys and asking, can you hook me up with a meeting? But, so I was kind of caught up at Fox, and I was developing all these animated projects for Fox while sort of secretly daydreaming about working on a show at Adult Swim, just because of the creative freedom, and the absurdity that it allows you, and just everything. So then when Dan called me, it was like, oh, finally a fucking foot in the door to go meet these guys. And then, we wrote a pilot and we wrote a pilot, we storyboarded it, designed all the characters, and then waited to get it tested, and then it tested really well, and we got to animate the pilot. And, it took forever. We had to fully animate the pilot, and after that, we finally got a green light to go to series.
It seems like sometimes shows take a while to find themselves, particularly comedy, like even you look at Seinfeld or The Simpsons, like I think famously took a little while to reach their prime. But Rick and Morty, at least to me, like really arrived fully formed. Like that first episode it's great, and it's like is what the show it is what makes the show great. It's all there in the first episode. Do you think that Channel 101 origin and that development process has anything to do with that?
Oh, definitely, 100%. Because by the time we took to the pilot and writing it, I had been living with these characters for years, since 2006, and pretty sure we wrote the pilot in 2011. My memory's so bad, but I want to say that was around the time. It might have been 2010, but we definitely like. I mean, I had those characters in my head rattling around forever, and I'd been kind of plugging them into all kinds of projects. At least those voices. My 2 Fox shows that I had both featured characters with very similar voices as to Rick and Morty, and always in different designs and different kind of relationships to each other. But they were always like at the front and center of anything I did, just because I knew how fun they were to do the voices. It was like, it's just a blast doing those characters talking to each other. So there was that, and then also, just Dan and I both in Channel 101, when you're having to tell a complete story in 5 minutes every month, you really get good at kind of boiling things down to their sort of essence, or just keeping things moving very swiftly, and sort of making sure that you're not bored at any point, and you're really just propelling the audience forward on a narrative that's just you're ahead of them the whole time. They can't predict what's going to happen next, and so that whole school of writing we applied to the pilot, and just keeping it really fast paced and telling a really grand story where they go to another world and then find their way back, and we broke that story in a day. I remember Dan and I were on the Paramount lot. I think he was wrapping up on season 3, or maybe might have been 4. Fuck, I can't remember. I think it was 3, season 3. He was wrapping up season 3 of Community, and we had a meeting to pitch the pilot idea that later that day, and so we broke that story in a day, and the sort of the final ingredient that really clicked everything into place was we were writing it and breaking it as if Rick was Jerry's dad, so he was Morty's paternal grandpa. Is that right? I think that is.
Yeah.
And I remember we just kept hitting this wall. We're like, what? Like there was a problem with that dynamic, and we kept hitting this wall. Like, okay, if the Beth character, we couldn't quite figure out why she would let this happen. She's the only character that kind of has any real power in the family outside of Rick, in terms of being able to put her foot down and do anything. And then the discovery of oh shit, Rick should be her dad, and she should be really, in love. She should just love her dad, be so happy that he's back in her life. And that kind of cripples her ability to do anything. And once we figured that out, it was sort of this huge aha moment. And we literally had that whole story broke within a few hours. And then I'll never forget, we pitched it. It went really well. And we got the green light to write the script that very same day. And I remember Dan was like, all right, let's go home. And I was like, I think we should spit this script out right now. I think we should just write a spit draft right now. And he was like, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go home and play video games or whatever. I don't remember what he said, but I was like, all right, that's fine. I'm going to stay back and spit the second act or the whole thing. It was just so fresh in my head. It was like, we had just broke the story. I was like, I had all these ideas. I was like, let's just do this while it's fresh. And me sitting there, staying back, elicited him. He's like, all right, fuck it, I'll stay, and threw his backpack down, and we just sat there and we spit draft. I think I did act 1, he did act 2, and we put them together, and I think it took us 4 hours or maybe a little less than that, and that was the script. I mean, we had very few notes. I mean, there was a couple of notes, just stuff about Morty's personality, making him a little tougher, giving him a little pushback and not such a limp noodle, and then I think we had to rewrite that the classroom scene in Act 1 a couple times, but beyond that, it was pretty much what we spit out that day.
When you say you had those characters' voices rattling around in your head, do you mean literally the voices that you yourself perform, or do you mean their point of view and their personality, or both? Are those linked in your mind?
It's funny. When I kind of riff the characters in the booth, if I go off script or if I do anything with the characters where I'm not following a script, they do have there is a certain personality that kind of comes through. that is my kind of, it's like my rawest, truest form of those characters. And I think it's that combined with the actual voices that I do. Those two things combined had been kind of, I've been kicking around and playing with for a really long time. And then in terms of like, deeper level stuff, like, okay, what motivates Rick and what, and all that stuff, that was stuff that that would always change from project to project. Who is he really? Or that voice, what is that? What's the deal with this character on a deeper level? But yeah, like the just the sort of like characters and the voices, like their personality, the way they interact with each other. There's a lot of improv and sort of freestyle stuff where I go off script in season 1, and those moments tend to be the moments where the characters are a little looser, But it's equally as important to the show. I feel like as the really great scripted stuff,
Do you remember one of those moments off the top of your head from season 1?
Yeah, I mean, like there's a bunch of little moments, like at the end of Meeseeks, that whole button at the end, not the tag, but like the very end when after they come home. A lot of that is improv.
Remind me what happens. I believe me, I know the episode. Like when you tell me, I know what it is, but I don't remember the button off the top of my head.
It's like Rick. They show up back at home, and the house is all fucked up, and Rick's like, what happened here, and your Meeseeks or what happened, and then Rick's like, oh, well, fuck. He said something about like a mop and some floor wax or something could have done it. I don't know, whatever. I can't remember exactly. But then at the very end, when he's like saying, "See you later, everybody," what Arsenio Hall or whatever that thing I said about Arsenio Hall, and I'm going like wubba lubba dub dub or whatever. That was all not scripted. That was just like just weird random shit. Just me fucking around. And I did it as scripted, but then I'll always kind of fuck around, and then we get to the radio play, and there's these weird off-book, like bizarro things that are just fucking hilarious, and we have to use them. We're like, oh, we got to use this. It's so weird and loose. And he's breaking the fourth wall, waving at the can. It's just bizarre. It's like, why would we? Like, it's something you'd never think to write, but it's like, I don't know. It's just stupid, But it makes the show really funny. It makes the characters really interesting that they sort of just get really loose and natural, and I don't know. It feels weird in a good way.
Something I love about your show is that I kind of think it would work even without the jokes. Like, I'm glad the jokes are there, and I like them, and don't get rid of them or anything. But the show is so well written, and you have these like kind of tight little sci-fi plots. That I actually don't know that you necessarily need them. How does the writer's room work, and how do you balance the plotting, like the mechanics of the sci-fi plot, versus, coming up with funny stuff?
In the writer's room, we'll break the story, we'll have the outline, and then we do a table read of the first writer's draft. We give notes, and then the writer goes back and does a pass. And then in season 1, it would kind of, each episode sort of had a different path. Like a lot of times, the script would then go to me and Ridley. We would do a pass, and then Harmon would do a final pass. In some rare cases, like Harmon would just take it right from the second writer's draft and just do his pass if it was really close. In season 2, it was like there were so many balls in the air that we didn't really have the luxury of doing it that way. And then in the beginning, and then we kind of got away from that process, which I think is a really great process. It was really fun and kind of kept things moving, and I really enjoyed being able to sit and do a pass on the script with Ridley or with Dan in my office. It was like we just pull it up on Apple TV on the screen and just kind of go through it and just play around and mess around with jokes and dialogue and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, it all would start from like a very unfunny sci-fi storyline. Usually, some of the storylines were funny, the conceit of them, but oftentimes, like especially that Scammers episode, that there weren't many laughs when we were breaking that story. There was a lot more of us banging our heads against the wall because it was just so fucking complicated. And then the same thing with the Council of Rick's episode. That one was just there, you know, we broke that story. It was incredibly. I mean, I repitched that story probably 8 times. I mean, we just kept running our hands over it to make sure we didn't have any hiccups and that every single answer or every single question had an answer. And, but it wasn't funny at all. I mean, that script wasn't really even that funny. We had to kind of go in and really punch it up. And, but it's one of my favorite episodes. You know, it's just such a great, the narrative is so fucking tight. And I love that. I love that process of just running your hand over the story over and over in the outline stage to just really perfect it and make it great.
Once you have that, is it then easy to hang jokes on it?
Yeah, in my opinion, absolutely. I mean, if you have an amazing, like solid foundation structurally and all the potential sweater threads are dealt with. So when you get to script, you're not seeing the story unravel on you, and you're not having to do a page 1 rewrite, you know, in script where you're like, fuck, okay, we have to gut this thing. You know, the more structurally stable it is when you get to script, the funnier it's going to be and the better it's going to be, because then you can really focus your script time on just, yeah, like you said, just adding jokes and just, you know, just literally like just opening up a joke room and having everybody pitch jokes. And I mean, it's just so much smoother that way.
It seems pretty clear based on the show that you are like, you must have like a pretty deep knowledge of nerd shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but I also suffer from the world's worst memory. Like, it's fucking horrible, to the point where I'm worried I might have some kind of like disease. I'm just like, oh my God, do I have Alzheimer's? I'm 34. It's really bad. But yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to test you, but I'm not looking to test you, but I'm curious to kind of like feel you out and see where your like nerd interests lie, and kind of just throw a few questions at you. So first of all, Back to the Future 2 versus Back to the Future 3. Where do you go on that one?
Oh, I would go with 2, I think. Even though I love Westerns.
Why 2?
As a kid, I always was really fascinated with 2. I love the idea of, you know, seeing the future, seeing the past, like just all those threads, like being able to kind of see him go into the future. But to be completely honest, I haven't watched it in a really long time. So who knows what I would say now if they hold up in terms of like just on a deeper level. I do remember being kind of bored with the sort of casino kind of post-apocalyptic version of the world, or just. Did
you revisit the movie at all? Because I don't see a ton of Doc and Marty and Rick and Morty now, but you know, that was the genesis for it. Did you revisit Back to the Future at all when you were thinking about the show?
No. In fact, I didn't even bother to watch it back when I made the original spoof of it, you know, or whatever you want to call that. Because like I tend to find that things are funnier and more fun when they're sort of skewed through my flawed memory, and I'm like, oh yeah, that happened in the movie, and people are like, no, it didn't. You got to watch the fucking movie, you idiot. But you know, and then also there was definitely like Dan and I both wanting to kind of pull as far away from Back to the Future as possible to kind of separate our show, you know, and our world from those movies, despite the fact that they were kind of the inspiration for the characters' archetypes, you know.
Right.
So, but I haven't I can't even remember the last time I've watched those movies. It's been forever.
All right, what about Aliens versus Alien?
Oh, Aliens is the second one, right?
Yeah, the James Cameron one.
Okay, so I like the second one. I mean, I think it's great. It pulls back and opens up. It's not as cramped. I mean, the first one's a really great horror movie because it's cramped quarters and it's just really suspenseful, and it has that cool kind of 70s, or when was it made? Was it late 70s or early 80s?
Yeah, I think late 70s, because I think Aliens is early 80s.
Yeah, it's got that feel to it, you know? There's like the movies back then just had a certain kind of feel. I don't know if it was the kind of cameras they used or the film they used or whatever, but I just love that feel. But I love Aliens. I think I would go with Aliens. I just love that they kind of pulled back and made it a bigger problem. You know, it's like this outpost on that planet, and I don't know, it's just really great.
Now, this is one where I'm not sure you'll be familiar with both of them, but let me try. Farscape versus Firefly.
Okay, so I would go with Farscape. Now, but to be completely fair, I have not seen Firefly. I'm familiar with Firefly. I have not watched the show. I have not like marathon through that show. I need to. It's on my list of shows to dig into.
I'm kind of surprised, even though we've only been talking for a half hour, and I only know you through watching your TV show. I'm still a little surprised you haven't seen Firefly. Is that weird?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, I've heard that before. I know it's a great show. I know it's amazing. I just haven't got around to it. With Farscape, I would have never watched that either. But my buddy Savan and my friend Savan and Abed, both of those guys turned me onto that show in like 2001 or something like that. It was in between season 3 and 4 of Farscape, and I marathoned through the first 3 seasons. And I just really, really appreciated the sort of treatment of aliens. Like getting to see those practical creature effects is so fucking great. And I love like, Star Trek and The Next Generation and just all the Star Treks and just sci-fi in general, Battlestar and all that stuff. But there's so few shows. I mean, really none that I can think of off the top of my head outside of, well, I mean, like, obviously Star Wars did it in movie form, but there's very few sci-fi shows that really went that crazy with the creatures, like just doing these awesome Muppet monsters.
Right.
I guess Muppet is a bad way to say it, even though it was a Jim Henson
No, I think they're Jim Henson, yeah.
Yeah, but they're just really cool, awesome creatures, really amazing creatures that, like the Skeksis, in Dark Crystal, that kind of stuff. You just don't see that anymore. So I was just in love with that show for that reason. And also, I really fell in love with the characters and just the overall conceit of this, like, American astronaut that gets sucked through a wormhole and lost in this crazy world across the galaxy or wherever the fuck he is. It's just, I love that concept. It's funny. Guardians of the Galaxy kind of did, I mean, it's the same thing. I don't know what came first ultimately because of the comic, but I know my buddy Abed was like really pissed at Guardians of the Galaxy. He's like, this is just a ripoff of Farscape. I haven't seen it yet, but... How
about comic books? Are you into comic books?
I was super, super into comic books. The second I moved to LA, I think like a few months after I moved here, a comic shop opened just down Ventura Boulevard from where I lived, within walking distance. And I had always wanted a really cool comic shop. I grew up in like Central California farmland, and there was just no good comic book shops. When I was in when I was like late high school and sort of early junior college, there was just nothing, that was close by for me to just get pulls and get on a regular kind of schedule of releases. And so I just dove in when I got to LA and this comic shop opened, and I was buying comics like insane. I was spending so much money on comics all the way up until around 2010 or 11. It became like I moved twice and I got further away from the comic shop, and it was getting to be longer and longer before I would go pick up my pulls. And they were really cool about it. And then they got a new employee who started to work there, and he was just like, he didn't care like that. I was like, look, I'm going to come pick up my books. Just hold on to them for another couple weeks or a week, whatever it would be. And he was just like, look, if you don't come this weekend, I'm putting them back out. And I was like, fuck. I was like, all right, do what you got to do. I knew I wasn't going to be able to make it that weekend. And that was it. that was like the final blow. All it took was that. And I just stopped. I just was like, you know what? It's probably better for my wallet. It's better for the space. I mean, I have like a rack of comics that's just enormous. I mean, they take up so much space if you're really buying a lot every week. And I just didn't have time to read them. I would go get my pulls, and it would be $80 of comics, and I'd come home and I'd be like, fuck, I can't wait to read this, but I'm like 20 issues behind, and I just don't have any time to read it. But during that time, like I was really into anything Warren Ellis did, Mark Millar. Is that how you say his last name, Millar, or is it Miller?
I guess I always assume Miller, but you're right, there's an A at the end there. I never really thought about it.
God, what else? There's just so many great books.
Did you skew, and this is where I was going with this, Marvel or DC? Did you like lean one way or the other?
It's funny. I was weird in that I never really got into any comic characters or comics that were based on characters that were just before I was born. You know what I mean? Like if there was a book or a franchise that's been around since, before my existence on this planet, there was some weird turnoff there for me.
So no Batmans, no Supermans.
I mean, I got the All-Star Superman just because, it was Frank Quiet.
That's a great book.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful, and it's Grant Morrison, and I mean, it's like, it's a piece of art, but in just your normal average Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or X-Men or any of those things, it was just too much. It was overwhelming. I was like, God, I need to there's just too much stuff that's happened, and it just overwhelmed me. So I really focused on new stuff, like newer stuff like Preacher or Why the Last Man, or I mean, God, there's so many books that I love. I'm trying to think of some. Oh, like The Boys, which is another Garth Ennis, right?
Garth Ennis, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And God, there's so many, there's a lot of Vertigo books, which is a DC imprint, which would probably make me more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. I feel like I was buying a lot of Vertigo stuff, and Wildstorm stuff, God, The Authority, and that kind of stuff. Like I read through all that stuff. Loved that stuff. I love the Midnighter spinoff, and I did read some Spider-Man and Punisher that Garth Ennis did with Steve Dillon, because I just wanted more Preacher so bad, and it kind of felt similar because it was the same artist and writer as Preacher. So I got into that stuff, and I got into Punisher as a result. So yeah, no, I did read a lot of Punisher actually because of Garth Ennis. I was like, and I even continued to read it after he stopped and someone else took over. But eventually I killed it. I stopped pulling it because I was like, this is, I don't know. I just loved Garth Ennis. I was like, I need more. I want more Preacher.
What about video games? I see you tweeting a lot about amiibos. Can I assume you're a Nintendo guy?
I have this love-hate thing with Nintendo right now.
Can you tell me what's going on with the amiibos? Because I'm a little out of the amiibo loop. I don't exactly understand. I don't know what's going on. Tell me about amiibos.
Well, it's a bigger issue. It's a bigger problem. The Nintendo. What's the fucking guy's name? The main guy.
Miyamoto?
No.
The American guy is Reggie something.
Reggie Fils-Aimé, but there's the other guy. There's one other dude that's like the main dude. Hold on, let me see. Oh, it's Iwata.
Oh, okay.
That guy. Okay. So from what I can gather, he took over Nintendo of America as CEO about a year ago. I want to say somewhere in that neighborhood, and they've had it ever since that happened, and potentially even before that. In certain instances, they've had a horrible grasp on supply and demand. Like, they're just completely underestimating the demand of a lot of the products they're releasing, and consistently so. So that's one of the major gripes I have with them as a company. It's fucking infuriating.
Do you think it's potentially deliberate? Like, they're trying... I'm not saying this is a good thing or an excuse. It's actually a terrible thing. But do you think they're possibly trying to, stoke demand and create collector's items? I don't even know why you'd want to do that. It just seems like something someone might want to do.
I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I think that they legitimately feel like, oh, this character nobody wants, or nobody's going to want this character, or... I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're trying to save money. Like, we don't want to sit on a bunch of stock, so let's not make as many because the Americans don't care about this guy, or whatever it is. But
this is specifically with respect to the amiibos or other products.
No, I mean it's now becoming a bigger thing. Like, it started I started to get really frustrated with the amiibos just because it was this weird thing where I'm busy, I don't know that, they're going on pre-order at this time and they're going to sell out in 10 minutes. Like, I'm not in the loop on
you're
that.
like an adult. You can't be paying attention to it around the clock.
Yeah. And I kind of was like, these are really cool. I'll pick these up, but I'll get around to it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to get these. And then they're sold out everywhere. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I start to learn, like, all these bizarro things, like Nintendo, all these exclusive figures that they made deals with to sell it, like Best Buy and GameStop and Target, and all the pre-orders for those figures sold out within like a couple minutes online, and they open pre-orders up at this bizarre hour on an undisclosed day. It's almost like you have to be psychic in order to get these things, And then there's all these scalpers just buying them in bulk and then putting them on eBay, which is really infuriating. But the thing
what is
really
an amiibo? Can
me
we back up for a sec? What is an amiibo?
An amiibo is are you familiar with like Skylanders or any of these like?
Sure.
So it's a similar thing. It's basically a character on a little base that has a microchip in it that you can use. Like in Smash Brothers, you can level it up, and it's basically like artificial intelligence that gets smarter, and you can kind of skew its fighting style and kind of raise it and change the way its fighting style is. And then
it's a little figurine that's collectible too, and it looks cool on your desk. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what kind of attracted me to them, because when they were first announced, I was like, "Fuck those things." but then I saw the final production models, and I was really impressed with the quality. They just are really cool looking little mini statues of Nintendo figures. And
Nintendo doesn't like put out first party. Nintendo generally, when they make something like first party, when Nintendo is making it, it's a quality product.
Yeah, I mean, these are really, really awesome. They're incredibly well made. They just look cool.
And these are, Mario, Zelda, Link, like the classic characters.
Yeah, and then a bunch of like more obscure characters as well have been made, and also characters from other series. Like they're going to be making a Pac-Man, and they're going to be making a Sonic that's coming out. But the initial thing that got me was the look of the characters and how cool they looked, and then the other thing that kind of has gotten me is I suck at Smash Brothers really bad, but I really love, like, it's very bizarre. I love like putting these amiibos into a battle and just watching them fight. And I don't know, it's there's something really appealing about that. And just leveling them up, and I don't know. And my friend Alex Hirsch had this crazy Smash Brothers party with like a bracketed competition, and I brought my amiibo, my Yoshi amiibo, and I was like, he's going to play for me. And he fucking made it all the way to the finals, and then got beat by Alex's supervising. What is it? He's like the lead artist on his show. This guy Ian, and he's just fucking really good at Smash Brothers, and defeated my amiibo in the very final battle. But it was awesome. It made it so interesting for everybody, because we're watching artificial intelligence versus a human player. Kind of it was this huge spectacle. Everyone was screaming during this final battle, and it was really close. And I love that stuff. The spectator side of it is amazing.
What kind of video games are you playing? Is it Nintendo all the way for you then?
No. I'm very like. I have every system, and then I have a really insanely overpowered PC laptop. It's one of those Razer Blade laptops, and so I'm tackling gaming from every angle. But I would say probably the system I play the most is the DS, the 3DS. Only because I don't know why. I don't know why it is. I play that system the most. There's something about it.
Can I get a video game episode of Rick and Morty somewhere in season 2, maybe season 3?
We've been kicking around a few ideas that'll eventually find their way to the screen, I would imagine.
Excellent.
Can I just say really quick that, like, here's the thing that really fucking pisses me off about Nintendo. Like, I'm so furious. And this is very, very recent. So the new Nintendo 3DS came out. It launched in Japan last year and in Australia last year, and they had two models. They had the XL and then the smaller, slim, regular new 3DS, which is a huge improvement on what was available here. The original 3DS, which is a smaller model than the XL. It was a huge improvement. It allows faceplates. You can customize it with these faceplates, and it has a bigger screen than the original one had. It's just more durable. It's sleeker. It was the one that it seemed like everybody wanted to get. And they announced it at E3 last year, and they announced it in America, last year at E3, as it's going to come here eventually. And they had their Nintendo Direct the other day, and it's just absent. Like, they're only going to release the XL, the new 3DS XL. and people are fucking furious, and I'm so pissed because I bought all these face or cover plates I imported from Japan, and I was like just so excited to finally have a small compact Nintendo 3DS that has a big screen, and because I take it with me everywhere. I take my 3DS with me like I take a phone. It's with me all the time everywhere I go. And I was so sick of this giant XL, this huge XL in your pocket, and it's like you have a giant brick in your pocket. And it's I'm just so pissed. It's like this guy Iwata, and I don't know who's responsible for it, but somebody made the decision at Nintendo that Americans don't need this smaller system. Americans, they have big hands and they like everything big. Like they like their drinks big, and they like if you're American, you like it big, and it's just like, fuck you, man. That's fucking bullshit. I want my electronics to be small and portable, and it's like, it's offensive to me. I'm furious. I'm really furious. I'm pissed.
Next time you are in New York, I have a recommendation for you and anyone else who happens to be listening to us right now. There's a store, Video Games New York, on the Lower East Side, and if you're the kind of person who's like importing 3DS faceplates from Japan, you got to go to this store, because it's like a video game museum with like imports and retro stuff and new stuff, from both sides of the ocean, and it's like a museum, but you can like just buy the stuff too.
What is it called? I'll go
Video
there.
Games New York. It's a tough name to remember, but it's on St. Mark's on the Lower East Side, and it's unbelievable. You got to check it out. They really have everything. Like, I'm sure they have those faceplates that you ordered. It's definitely worth the trip next time you're in New York.
I'll definitely go there. Yeah, I love that stuff.
All right, I have a few more, and I got to ask you because there's some big ones here. What about Cronenberg versus Lynch?
I probably would go with Cronenberg, and I love Lynch, but. Sometimes his movies, they're very just like, what the fuck am I watching? Which is great. Like, I've grown to love that over the years. At first I hated his stuff. I always loved Twin Peaks, always. But the movies, like, I would just be like, what in the fuck? Like Mulholland Drive, I remember seeing it in the theater, and I was just like, I was pissed. I was like, I want my fucking time back. But then, I watched it as an adult, or, I wasn't that young when I saw it in the theater, but I watched it, with a little more life experience or whatever you want to call it. And I really appreciated it, even though it still is like a goddamn puzzle. It's like, what the fuck? Like you're debating with your friends. Like, okay, no, that represented this and this was that, it's just like, there's no real clear narrative going on. It's to, as far as I can discern, but I think that's different with Cronenberg. I think that his stuff, his approach is a little more, just palatable, I guess, to the average viewer.
When you on Rick and Morty did the Cronenberg episode, or it's not a Cronenberg episode, but part of the episode is that they turned the universe into a Cronenberg universe with kind of. That's maybe the best 5 seconds of season 1 is like the when it pans over and people are mutating into these Cronenberg monsters. Was that designed? Did you like really try to imitate Cronenberg with those?
No, we knew that the. I feel like the Cronenberg thing was an ad lib. I'm pretty sure. Either that or it was something that I have the worst memory. I don't want to take credit for something that
right, but that is the episode. You were saying how I don't know, that might even the scene where they first start calling them Cronenbergs might even be that scene you were talking about earlier that was you were saying it was improvised.
Yeah, I definitely know that we knew from a structural standpoint that they were going to just turn into these awesome, mutated creatures. But I don't think the Cronenberg thing was there until a later draft of the script at earliest. But I also wonder, I can't remember, but it might have been something I improv'd in the booth. But again, I don't want to take credit from anybody. I have a bad memory, and I'm always hesitant to take credit for something just in case I didn't actually come up with it. But yeah, I do know that came later for sure. So the design process wasn't like, I might have even told my art director James McDermott. I might have said, hey, look up some Cronenberg stuff, because like stuff from Naked Lunch, it's definitely I think I did tell him to look up some stuff. That was the direction I wanted to go in, and but I don't think we had the connection of like naming them, calling them Cronenbergs until later.
There's also a great episode of the show that is like a Fantastic Voyage episode, but it's also a Jurassic Park episode. What about Jurassic Park or Jaws?
I probably would go with Jurassic Park, but only because that movie came out when I was
prime dinosaur age.
Yeah, and also just it was just prime. Like I think when did that come out? 94?
I think 93.
Yeah, and so I was 13. And I feel like with Jaws, it was one of those things that was around before I was born, or
it did exist before you were born, yeah.
And I did see it, I watched it, but it's yeah, I just feel more of a connection to Jurassic Park because it came out, I remember going and seeing it in the theaters and just being insanely blown away by the CGI. I need to watch that again and see if it holds up. The CGI, is it shitty? Have you seen it recently?
It's not bad. I have seen it. First of all, the movie's great. Like, the movie's so fun and really fun. The CGI holds up better than, like, tons of movies that came out since, which doesn't... It's somewhat counterintuitive because it was, like, the first kind of widespread deployment of CGI, and yet it's also one of the best.
Yeah. I mean, they really got off on the right foot there. And they were like, we got to make sure that this is great. Otherwise, no one's ever going to do it. No one's ever going to use this technology.
There is an Inception episode of Rick and Morty, which is also the Nightmare on Elm Street episode, and I think also the Lawnmower Man episode. But one I want to get your take on is Inception versus The Matrix.
Oh, I would go with The Matrix. The Matrix is insane. It's like to me, it's one of the most, at least the first one, is one of the most groundbreaking movies that I've ever seen in my life. It's fucking incredible. I loved Inception.
Did you? Because Rick has some things to say about it.
That's all Dan. I mean, it's funny when we were doing that episode, Dan really has a beef with that movie, and I kind of like it. So I was like, well, let's have Morty like it, and Rick hates it, and let's just tap into this real. That's all basically real, and. It's funny to me. It's really funny. It's funny that Rick hates it so much. It's funny to me that Dan hates it so much because I think it's a great movie, but that was definitely like one of the things that was sort of the, it's not as prevalent in the episode as it was in one of the earlier drafts where we really were like, let's really give it to Inception. Let's really like have fun with how overly complicated it is. But it's still in there a little bit,
Yeah, your show actually goes a little bit further than Inception does because your show, they go into the dreams. They go into the dreams of dreams, which is like a really interesting thing that isn't explored at all in Inception. So not only do you do Inception, but you actually manage to build on it a little bit. That's not really a question. I just love your show.
Wait. Didn't they? I thought they did go into the dreams of dreams in Inception.
They go into dreams in dreams, but in your show, like, they go into Scary Terry, who's like kind of a Freddy Krueger thing. Like, they go into his dream, and it's like, what would a nightmare's nightmare be? And you see, like, him in school not being on time or something like that. Yeah. So, like, it does go in this interesting vector that the movie, Inception, which is a movie that pretty thoroughly explores the concept of going into other people's dreams, like, didn't even go into.
Yeah, and then also... No, yeah, you're right. No, I mean, I remember also us being worried, like, oh, fuck, are we getting this right? Is this how Inception worked? You know what I mean? Like,
do you not watch Inception when you're writing the Inception episode? Do you not, like, stopping for 2.5 hours to watch Inception?
No, I mean, you'd be surprised at how seldom we go, okay, fuck it, we need to watch this and see what the fuck we're doing, because we'll just be like, fuck it, it's close enough, and we'll ask the writer's assistant or whoever's around, like, is this right? Do you remember Inception? Whoever has the best memory, like, help us. We had all seen it, but it was like, I saw it when I was in the theater and I hadn't seen it since. So I was like, it's good enough. I think we're right.
Man, it's fun, the thing that I love about this show is it was like immediately clear that this was a show. It feels like this show was made for me, and I think there's other people that feel that way too, because it's so, like, your passion for these things is so clear, not even talking to you, just in the show, and it's so fun. It's so fun to, you put them together, you like kind of repackaged them in such an interesting way and added to it, like I was saying, and also made it funny. It's really great. I really enjoy it. Is there anything you can tell us about season 2? Is there anything like you've been watching that's kind of been in your head that you're like looking to work into season 2 maybe?
I don't know what I can tell you about season 2.
Yeah, I'm not looking for like a scoop or anything. I'm just kind of curious, like, what sci-fi stuff have you been watching that you're like, oh, that could be a Rick and Morty?
I don't know. It's funny. Like the writing for season 2 has been done for so long. Now I'm into like posting color, and that's just it's so much more mechanical. Like you're not really being as creative as when you're writing, when you're posting color, because you're just looking at every shot and scrutinizing, line weight and background. Is the background the right angle? And Rick looks weird here and all that kind of crap, which is just mind numbing. But there's stuff like going into season 3, there's all these ideas I have, like Die Hard, and I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that inspire, and you kind of just let that stuff kind of float in, and then you log it down on Evernote or whatever, kind of note app that you have, or your notebook. And then, I mean, God, I'm trying to think, like, there was a lot of, like, things that we sort of use as springboards for episodes. In season 1, it was a lot of inventions. It was like, okay, what are some cool Rick inventions that we can write a story around? We had like you were just talking about the lawnmower dog episode. We had that cognition helmet for the dog, which that all started with just a cool invention. We're like, oh yeah, a machine that makes dogs really smart. How would that play out? What would happen? And then, the Dream Inceptor device, and then the Meeseeks box. And there's just a lot of really cool inventions in season 1. And then in season 2, I don't think there's quite as many stories wrapped around Rick's inventions. We kind of started to open the universe up and explore different things and different points of departure for stories. Not to say that stuff isn't, a part of the show in season 2. It totally is, but just not as many in terms of like just the process of us breaking story. Like a lot of times in season 1, we would just start with an idea for an invention or a superpower that we could turn into some kind of sci-fi device and then write a story around that. I will say this, and I probably shouldn't say this, but the first episode back in season 2, I fucking hate. I hate it.
Why?
I hate it. I don't know.
Do you hate any episodes from season? Like, is that common for you? Did you hate season 1 before it aired?
No. Let me think. Was there anyone in season 1? In season 1, I was worried about. What episode was I worried about? Oh, I was worried about the finale, the last episode. There was a point in time when I was posting the house party episode that I wanted to commit suicide just because it looked so shitty. And there were so many notes I had to type. And it was just like exhausting, mind-numbingly bad. I mean, it was like I constantly would have to give the same note over and over and over, or a shot would have to have 12 retakes on it just to get it looking somewhat decent. That, when we were in animatic, I loved it. And then we got to color and I'm like, what happened? And I remember going back and watching the animatic and going, no, this is a good episode. It's bad now because the animation's just fucked. And I remember just being really worried about that one because I got it as close as I could in the time I had, but I still feel like there's shots that I'm like, oh my God, I cringe when I see them just because it's so puppety and it's so just digital. It's very depressing. I'm like, God, it's one of the downfalls of doing a show in a program like Harmony and doing builds as opposed to traditional 2D animation, I mean, both have their pros and cons, but sometimes it takes a lot of work to finesse something up to the point where it actually looks like a cartoon and not just a bunch of, computers keyframing puppets and stuff.
But when you look back at it, like, are you still sad about that episode? Like, I certainly didn't notice anything unusual about it.
No, I mean, I like that episode a lot. The only thing I could possibly say is that, there's still shots that I'm like, fuck, I want to fix this. I want to fix that.
But that's going to be that's anything ever, probably anything anyone has ever created, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that one more than the other ones, though, for sure. I mean, I feel
Gotcha.
In terms of season one, but I remember Dan being really, really nervous about the scammer episode, the M. Night Shyamalan's episode.
Oh, is that how you say that? I never put together how you pronounce that title. I get it now.
Yeah. But I remember being, well, no, I mean, I'm probably simplifying it. I think I spelt it really bad, like on purpose, like Shyamalan's or whatever. Harmon was really worried about that episode. I wasn't so worried. I felt like it was a good, I think his concern kind of was contagious, and I started to get worried about it, but then I had to like slap myself out of it and go, wait a minute, I've never felt this way. Like he was really worried that, we're starting the story off and the audience doesn't know what's going on until, 3 minutes in or 4 minutes in, and that's a bad thing. And I never really had a problem with that. I was like, I think it's intriguing. The audience is curious. They're like, what's going on? And you find out you find out at a perfect moment, I think, when Rick kind of explains to Morty that they're in a simulation, and, you pull the curtain off pretty quick. Up to that point, it's just kind of like mysterious, like what is going on? But Harmon was really worried about that. He wanted to go in and rewrite the beginning so that we got to the reveal that they're in a simulation quicker. But that episode was such a delicate episode that I didn't want to go in and fuck with it.
Right.
At Animatic, it was like, there's too many potential sweater threads that could get pulled here. And I pushed back and just kept, I was confident enough that it was good. It was a good episode, and that we were giving the audience all the information they needed at the appropriate time to follow it and stuff and enjoy it. But that was more Harmon's concern. I'm trying to think of, outside of that last one, I really can't remember if there's any episode that I was really worried about. Fuck. I'm trying to think.
So should I now watch the season 2 premiere?
No, watch it.
I know. I'm going to watch it. Trust me.
I only said that because I only said that out of fear that I'm right, and then just lowering everyone's expectations. You know what I mean? It's like, I would love for that to, as much as I'm sure everyone would be furious with me if that became some kind of story out of this interview, I would love it, because then at least everybody's going, lower your expectations for the first one. The good news is we have some amazing episodes in season 2. There's some phenomenal stuff that we did that I'm super excited about. But just I personally am, I just the first one back, I'm just like not, and I don't like it. I'm just like, I'm not a fan.
Well, I'm going to watch it anyway, but I won't be able to watch it until the summer, right? Season 2 premieres in July, maybe, or something like that?
Yeah, it's in the summer. I don't know exactly what month or day, but I know we know that it's the summer. I don't know if they've even actually slated if they've even plugged it in.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Well, I wish it was coming sooner, but I cannot wait to watch it. I really think it's probably pretty clear for everyone who's been listening to the past hour, but I love this show. It really sings to me. It's really just like it's exactly the show I wanted. I didn't even know I wanted. Thank you so much for creating it and coming on the show and talking about it. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, no problem. This was fun. Hey, wait! I want to make a plea to all the listeners to you should call Nintendo and call Nintendo and give feedback stating that your desire was to buy a regular new 3DS. Just do it for me. Just for me. Even if you don't want to. Just call them. Don't tell them I told you to. Let's make them
think. Be polite,
Yeah, be polite. Just say, hey, I'd like to file some feedback. Really, really sad that the system isn't coming.
Well, if that doesn't work, write your congressman.
Write your congressman. This is a real big issue. This is something we should all care about. You know, I mean, in the wake of the terrorist attacks in France, I think we really need to call Nintendo and focus on the bigger picture here and try to get this Nintendo 3DS system released in America. I think it's very important. It's worth your time. I can't think of anything more important right now in our society, in our current society that we're living through, than this. I mean, this really is. I mean, you know, we're all going to die, but who cares about that?
Well, let me ask you one last question. What is in that 3DS that you're carrying around with you everywhere right now? What are you playing?
Oh God, I have so many games. And you know what? As much like I used to tell people never buy digital from Nintendo ever. Don't ever do it. There's no support. If you lose your system, you're fucked. It's not like Apple where if you lose your phone, you can just like through cloud back it up on a new phone and get all your shit back that you paid for. Like Nintendo is like really archaic. Like if you lose your system and you've pumped a bunch of money into digital, you're fucked. Like you're absolutely fucked. Like there's nothing that you can do about it. You can call them and, you know, they'll give you like $50 in credit if they think you're telling the truth, but there's no way to tell, you know, it's fucking crazy. But anyways, despite my you know, my past sort of instructions to everyone else, like don't buy digital, I've gone to the dark side and I've just like, my system is filled with games. And some of the stuff I'm playing a game called Faerun, which is also on the iPhone. I don't know if I'm saying it right. I'm playing a bunch of games that are only available on the eShop. Let's see, what am I? I'm playing Fantasy Life. I'm playing Cave Story again. Yeah, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Tapingo. I don't know. There's tons of great games on this thing. Steamworld Dig is another one.
Oh, I just played that on PlayStation 4, and it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what. Like, I've been a handheld gamer since the beginning, since the original Game Boy, and I have every version of Game Boy that's ever come out. I mean, I've always been a handheld gamer, mostly. You know, I think it's why I have to wear glasses. I think it's why my eyesight's so bad.
Do you turn the 3D on when you play the 3DS?
I do, but lately not as much. I imported the new 3DS, you know, the good one, the regular one with faceplates and a smaller form factor. I imported it from Australia, and then I got one through Nintendo, through someone who works at Nintendo who hooked me up, and from Japan. And it's so hard to go back to using 3D on the standard 3DS after having that and using that. It's just incredible. I mean, it really is a huge improvement in terms of your ability to use the system with the 3D turned up, because you're not getting that flicker effect when you kind of adjust your system, and it really just follows your face and keeps the 3D at all angles. It's incredible.
Are those systems region locked? Can you play American games on them that, you know, you go buy at GameStop or whatever?
No, they're region locked.
So are you importing Australian games too? Like, what are you doing with this thing?
What I do is I get Australian e-cards, and then I'll type in so I'll just buy digital. I just buy off the eShop in Australia.
I have enormous respect for the lengths you are going to be playing on the DS that you want to play on.
It's so frustrating. It's like, you know, it's a shame too, because now I'm looking at any way I can crack, you know, like the Japanese one I have. I would love to flash the firmware and somehow, and the only solution from what I'm reading is just like getting one of those like a gateway card or something. And that's, I mean, obviously if I find myself in a situation where I have to get some gateway card and not have access to the eShop, well, you know, I'm going to start pirating games. I hate to admit it. I mean, like, if I can't transfer all these games I've bought on my system over to, you know, this new one, then I'm just going to have to pirate them, because I'm not going to buy them twice. It's crazy. And I worry that a lot of people are in the same boat as me. They're just going to turn to piracy. And I think a lot of the hackers are going to find a way around this. And it's completely avoidable if Nintendo just releases this system. It's nuts.
Yeah, you're like clearly their biggest fan, you know, like you want to give them money, so that must be frustrating.
Yeah, no, I have no problem purchasing. I mean, I purchase all my games. I'm not a big pirate, you know. It's like I'm not just, it's just more hassle than it's worth, and I'm just not, I don't care. I don't mind spending the money on the games to support the developers and stuff. But when you put me in a situation where my only option is to do something underhanded in order to get the console to work properly here in my region, it's like, well, okay, I guess I have to. It sucks.
Do you have an iPhone and do you play games on that? Because that is completely like, I never need a DS again because I there's so many great iPhone games and like I love the DS, but like, you know, I kind of already have the iPhone.
Yeah, no, I have the iPhone and I have an iPad and I do play. I mean, there's a lot of games that are really, really great. But then if you want any games that are, you know, platformers or anything that require tight controls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I just need those buttons. Well, here's what I'll tell you is like if Apple released an official, you know, controller case or something that you can just slip your iPhone into that actually introduced, you know, a D-pad and some buttons and shoulder buttons and stuff, and they made that the official, you know, controller attachment that all the developers would then implement in their games, that would be the final blow to Nintendo, I think, in terms of their handheld sales. Because that's really the only thing that's keeping me back from, you know, I mean, that's like the main thing. I mean, the phone is strong. It's more powerful than the 3DS. It's not 3D, but you know what? I do love 3D though. I mean, it's such a cool thing. I mean, it's such a cool feature. But yeah,
it's great to hear that you are as big a nerd as your show makes it seem like you would be. So thank you again so much for talking tonight and you know, for making this amazing show.
Thank you. Yeah, no problem.
Justin Roiland, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed that because now we have some business to get to. I don't know if you guys have been following me on Twitter and or social media, despite the fact I tell you to every single week during this time of the show. Are you still not doing that? Even if you are, you might have missed that I mentioned that I'm moving back to New York. After kind of making a big deal about it last year, I'm already moving back to New York. I'm taking a new job at YouTube, which I'm very excited about. So a few things about that. One is that I want to mention before we move on that I just really enjoyed my time at BuzzFeed. Everyone there was wonderful, and I'm really proud of the work I did there. I made so many videos that I actually took some time to put together a list of my favorite videos that I made in my time at BuzzFeed. That post is called The 13 Best Videos I Made at BuzzFeed, according to me. I'm sure if you look through my Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, etc., that I'm going to mention in a minute, you'll find it, you'll Google it. I don't know how to link to it. I can't link to it with words, but trust me, if you're interested, you will find it. I hope you are interested because I'm really proud of the work I did there, and I think if you like this show, there's a pretty good chance you're going to like those videos too. So, moving back to New York already, and, you know, what does that mean for this podcast? Will the podcast keep going? Yes. Will it be as frequent? Maybe. I'm honestly not sure. I think it is possible. And I'm going to allow, you know, I started this thing, I don't even know, I think 3.5 years ago, but I'm honestly not even sure. This podcast, I've been doing it for about 3.5 years. And I started out weekly, and then I pulled it back to weekly except every first Tuesday of the month. And then I pulled it back to every other week when I moved to LA. And, you know, so the schedule kept getting slower and slower, but I never missed an episode. And I think I'm, after 3.5 years, gonna allow myself to start missing episodes, and let me tell you why. It's, you know, I think one of the reasons I have a schedule is, you know, just to kind of push myself. I think that if I didn't have a schedule, I'd probably still be working on the third episode. So, you know, it's just like a matter of, you know, pushing myself to get stuff out there, and I don't want to stop doing that. The reason that I'm going to be slowing down potentially, I don't know, we'll see what my life is like, a little bit on the podcast, is because I'm going to start making videos. And that stuff I'm going to be doing on my own. It's not part of the new job. I'm just going to be making Jeff Rubin videos, which is both good and bad. The bad part is that they'll probably look like garbage because I don't know what I'm doing. But the good part is that I'm going to do whatever I want, which has kind of been the blueprint for the podcast so far. So I think it might work here too. And, you know, frankly, I learned so much in my time at BuzzFeed that I kind of feel up to making my own videos now. And the videos will not be exactly like the podcast. I don't plan on just putting a camera in front of the podcast and letting it roll. I think I'm actually planning a few different things, and I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to take me a little bit to get them off the ground because I'm moving, and then, you know, I got to get my life together before I can start making these videos. But I definitely have ideas. This is happening. Now that I've said it, it's got to be happening. I'm going to start making videos. gonna, I'd say the podcast is already taking up as much of my life as a hobby can, realistically take up, which is why it may be tuned down a little to make room for this video thing. But ultimately, I want to, keep this level of Jeff Rubin-ness up. I want to keep putting it out there. I said, I believe in a previous episode when we were discussing schedule changing, that this is something I kind of see myself doing for the rest of my life, and I don't think anything there has changed. I really think that, I can imagine a world where I'm doing this only whenever I have one I really want to do, or when, when there's someone I really want to talk to, but, and that's not where we're at now, but I can imagine it like getting that slow, but I can really never imagine not doing it. So I hope you'll stick around for the ride. And I hope we went off. I think we're ending regularly scheduled Jeff Rubin shows on a very high note. I really enjoyed talking to Justin there. And that's kind of what I have to say. Okay. Well, here we are. Thank you guys so much for listening, not only to all of that, but the whole episode and the entire, 3.5 years or whatever I've been doing this show. Again, it's like probably one of my favorite parts of my life, I would say. And it was like really important to me in, all of this turnover that I was still able to do it. And I am, and I'm gonna. So I will see you there. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter, where I'm at Jeff Rubin Show, on Tumblr, jeffrubin.com. I got a Facebook fan page, and I guess you might as well subscribe, youtube.com/ oh boy, I gotta look what it is. I think I have Jeff Rubin. Let's look real quick. Can you guys hold on for one sec? youtube.com/ Jeff Rubin. Hold on, it's loading. Oh yeah, that's me. youtube.com/ Jeff Rubin. You can see the last video I made was me apologizing for that I stopped posting podcasts on YouTube. So we're going to do better than that in the future. And I'm looking forward to doing better than that with you. See you there. Bye for now.